Tonight's tale. The light at the end of the hallway. The air hummed in the academy. It always did. Slow and steady, like the breath of some ancient beast that never truly slept. I remember it heavier in the classrooms, the carved walls of obsidian, the way they rippled faintly as if hated to be looked at for too long. The vaulted ceiling reached high above as if our desks sat underneath a belly of stars. Through the cracks you could see tiny constellations glimmering, as if the heavens themselves had been sewed into the ceiling. The instructor's voice, steady and unyielding, vibrated through the air from the floating podium where he spoke. The lesson that night was on enhanced hypnagogia. He spoke of the threshold between liminal states, of keeping sleepers tethered in stillness, his words heavy. Paralysis, he recited, a skill you must master first in nightmare crafting. To hold them still, to silence the thrashing of their bodies, so the true nightmare may take root. Our quills scratched faintly against parchment, each desk polished smooth by the countless restless hands before our own. The soft shuffle of robes, the whispered murmur of the other students, the sigh of our pages turning, all layered into the rhythm of the academy's hum. I leaned forward while scribbling my notes, though my writing always slowed as the lesson deepened. Something in me wanted to understand more than the others. To bind the dreamer, yes, but to also know them. I wanted to know what stirred within their stillness. Nix sat beside me with her familiar, quiet defiance. She slouched just enough to show disinterest. Her hand moved constantly, doodling strange sigils into her notebook. Not from the lecture, though, but for her own amusement. A smirk tugged at her lips, mocking the instructor, mocking us, mocking herself. And yet she absorbed everything. She always did. To my other side sat Erebus, who was quite the opposite. He sat straight, arms folded across his chest, with an expression carved from stone. His eyes flicked from the instructor's gestures to the growing and shrinking shadows that lined the room. Always calculating, always cataloging. He rarely wrote, but when he did, the quill moved like a blade. He leaned toward me, muttering in a voice like gravel. He sounds like he's falling asleep to his own lecture. His deadpan tone almost made me laugh. Almost. And then there was Loomis, sweet, timid Loomis. luminous. His small frame hunched over the desk. His fingers shifted the twisted fabric of his robes. His eyes would dart from wall to wall, as if the shadows themselves might leap out to accuse him of something. I always felt the need to reach out, to assure him. But that was the way of the academy. The fear kept you sharp, and sharpness kept your existence. The instructor's voice droned on, filling the silence with ingredients of hallucinations to perfect, complete paralysis when the siren wailed. That sound, I feel it still lingering in me. Not a bell, not a chime, but a hollow rising cry, as if some unseen creature was announcing our dismissal by mourning us. It poured through the halls, vibrating in our bones, the signal that the lesson was over and the corridors awaited. Our chairs scrubbed against the floor as we rose, cloaks brushed against one another, our shadows leaning long across the walls as lanterns of indigo fire glimmered. We filed out through the large double doors, the echoes of our footsteps swallowed by the endless corridors beyond, just like any other night at the academy. The wail of the siren faded, and our footsteps echoed in unison, merging with those from the other classrooms as we flowed into the caverns of the academy. The halls were vast, with walls that twisted upon itself as though the stone had once been soft and frozen in the midst of contortion. Arches loomed overhead, ribbed with pale veins of faintly glowing runes that pulsed now and then, like the rhythm of some heartbeat. Alcoves carved between the pillars, where statues of forgotten figures crouched. Lanterns flicked along the walls, but the shadows they cast did not obey their laws. They stretched unnaturally, sliding along the stone and recoiling when glanced at directly. The sound of the corridor was its own kind of music, hundreds of voices overlapping in a muffled chorus, the shuffle of robes, the rhythmic beat of boots and bare feet as they struck against the stone floor. Yet beneath it all there were whispers, not from students, not from anything living, but of old memories, trapped in the walls, murmuring their fragments to no one in particular. We walked with the others, the four of us drifting into our familiar arrangement. Nyx a step ahead, head half turned as if she always needed to see who followed. Erebus steady beside her, every movement deliberate. Loomis stayed close but quiet, shoulders tight, eyes on the floor. And me, listening, watching. And then, to my right, a flicker. At the far end of a side corridor half swallowed by shadow, I saw a pulse of bluish gold mixed with white, quick, sharp, reflecting against the obsidian walls as if it were alive. Did you see that? I whispered, more to myself at first, but the words slipped out. There was something down the hallway. Nyx turned her head quickly, her eyes catching the faint afterglow. For the briefest instant I saw her posture tighten and her smirk fade. But with her typical ease, she dismissed it. Probably nothing, she mumbled. A lantern, maybe a reflection. Still her gaze lingered for a moment too long. Loomis's eyes darted down the corridor. He shrank into himself, shaking his head in his usual fashion. Whatever it is, I don't like it, he said in his low, trembling voice. Come on, we'll be late. We shouldn't. Erebus crossed his arms and followed my gaze with a calm disinterest. His tone was dry and dismissive, but still curious. Could have been a flame, he muttered. Maybe someone dropped a lantern. Whatever it is, it's not worth lingering here. His eyes flicked to Loomis with quiet calculation, measuring the fear that pressed at him. But then the glow pulsed again, faint, teasing. This time darting around the corner at the end of the hall, vanishing before our eyes could grasp it. I stepped forward, my voice softer with an attempt to coax. There, you saw it. Can we just take a look? Don't you feel it? It's like something's waiting. Nyx's eyes narrowed. Or something's baiting, she countered, sharp but hushed. You want to walk into a trap, curious one. Let's go, we're going to be late. Loomis shook his head, clutching his robes tighter. Yes, we should go before we're noticed. But you saw it, right? I whispered, turning to them, begging for validation. Erebus exhaled, his tone still dry. It's just a reflection, Noctis. A loose lantern, a trick of the stone. You're seeing patterns where there are none. Maybe, I did admit. If it's nothing, then we'll lose only moments. But if it's something... Silence stretched. Nyx tilted her head, studying me the way she always did, half skeptical, half intrigued. Loomis fidgeted, his gaze darting between us and the darkness, and Erebus remained still, unreadable. Finally, Nyx sighed. One corner, she said, reluctant but firm. If there's nothing, we turn back. That's all I ask, I sighed in relief. And so we ventured. Only a little, only far enough to where the light had flickered. But we were met with only darkness. The hallway took another turn and jetted off further, whose end fell into a dark abyss. No light was found, not even a fallen lantern. Whatever it was gone. Erebus broke the silence first. We've seen all there is. If we wander further, then we will for certain be noticed. Nyx nodded. She agreed before I could even argue. He's right. Whatever it was, it doesn't matter. And if it does, the council will make sure we hear about it. Loomis had already turned back, as though the words gave him permission to retreat. I lingered a bit longer, staring into the black where the light had been, but then I turned to follow. We spilled back into the rhythm of footsteps, the hum of voices, the endless corridors that led us to our next lesson, Nightgaunt Understanding. The corridors narrowed and funneled us into the next chamber. The air grew heavier the closer we came as an unseen weight pressed at our chests. Even the walls themselves braced against what it held inside. A room opened wide and circular, its walls lined with jagged arches of black stone. Shackles hung from the ceiling, unused but present, swaying faintly though there was no draft. The shadows stretched impossibly long here in the Nightgaunt observation hall. We took our seats that were arranged in tiers around a circular platform. At the far side stood a chamber door, obsidian reinforced with iron. Behind it, a slow, deliberate drag of something vast shifted. Then came the sound of heavy thuds and the groan of air pressed into spaces too small. The floor vibrated with each movement, as though the creature beyond breathed through the stone itself. The instructor raised his voice, deep and flat. Nightgaunts are not to be mastered, not to be bent. They are endured. Your lack of fear is the only chain you hold. The air trembled again, followed by a hollow rasp. It was not a roar, not even a growl, just sound, alien, resonant, feeling the bones rather than the ears. However, my quill lay still, my notes unread, because my mind was elsewhere. That light, that pulsing shimmer, I replayed it in my mind over and over. Nyx shifted in her seat, turning her head just slightly. Her eyes caught mine, a subtle warning, giving me the faintest shake of her head. I lowered my gaze, but in my thought, that glimmer tugged at me still. Erebus leaned just enough to murmur, his voice no louder than a thought. You're miles away. Try not to drift into a wall. His voice gave the faintest suggestion of amusement, though his eyes remained fixed forward. Loomis sat stiff as stone, every muscle tight. His eyes never lifted from the instructor, hands clutching the desk. He was determined not to be seen, not to stand out, not to give the creature behind the chamber door any reason to know his name. The instructor lifted a hand, and with a grinding groan the reinforced door opened. It entered. At first we could not see it, only hearing the sound of loud thuds that filled every vacant space in the hall. Then the dust and shadow began to settle. The Nightgaunt loomed tall enough to brush the ceiling. Its flesh a rotting void stretched over a husk of a once living form. Massive wings curled close against its frame, feathers stripped to bare leather. Its head hung low, like that of a bison drowned long ago and returned back from the depths. The stench of wet stone and old air rolled across us. It did not roar. It did not thrash. Instead, it stood, silent but alive with weight. The longer we looked, the longer its shadow seemed to stretch until it wrapped the entire hall. "Observe," the instructor said, his voice steady. "Do not flinch. Do not move. The Nightgaunt's hunger is for fear. If you tremble, it will know. If you breathe unevenly, it will sense it. It does not obey. It endures, and must you." The Nightgaunt tilted its head, a slow, uncanny motion. Its hollow eyes swept over us like a tide. And for a breath, just one, I thought it faltered. Its head lifted, twitching our way faintly, not at random, not instinct. It was as though it smelled something on us, something different. Nyx noticed too. I saw her grip the desk, though her gaze never wavered. Erebus's jaw tightened, and Loomis nearly broke his quill in half. And I, even with this beast in front of me, I thought of the light. It flipped like a reel, again and again. Time seemed to slip past unnoticed, the instructor's words weaving in and out of my thoughts while the light lingered just beyond. Then the siren wailed. The Nightgaunt shuddered, as if shaking off an old chill. Students exhaled all at once. The class was dismissed. Though this time we did not funnel into the main arteries of the academy. Instead, we spilled into the longer recess corridors, where the alcoves opened into shadowed rest areas. Students drifted in pockets, some gathering with the crows in the courtyards, others lingered in shadowed corners. I remember how empty those lesser-traveled halls felt, and I lingered with my steps. "I want to go back." My voice was low but certain. "To the corridor. There's something there. Something I can't explain. It just feels different." I turned to the others. Loomis shifted uneasily, his eyes darting to the ground. He wanted to speak, but before the weight of silence could fall on him, Erebus stepped forward. "I'll save you the trouble. I'm not going." "It was nothing." He spoke firmly, sparing Loomis from having to refuse me outright. His tone was final, indifferent yet protective in its way. He had seen Loomis's fear and carved a path for him to retreat into without shame. I understood. Loomis quickly nodded in agreement. Only Nyx lingered, her gaze cutting. She studied me for a moment, as though weighing the inevitability of my choice. "You'll go whether we follow or not, won't you?" I did not answer. I didn't need to. She already knew. She stepped closer, her tone softened by something resembling concern. "Then I'll come to keep you out of trouble." And that was her way, practical caution draped in sarcasm. But beneath it, something else. She would walk where I walked, even if it meant stepping into danger. I wanted to smile. Trouble had always found us both, though rarely in the same form. And so it was decided. Erebus and Loomis remained behind, their shadows receding into the halls of the academy. Nyx fell into step beside me. We alone turned toward the unknown, bound by curiosity and by something else, something neither of us dared yet to name. We returned to the place where the light had first revealed itself, entering the dark abyss where we ceased earlier. It led us further into a twisting corridor buried deep within the academy. The air felt heavier here, the walls pressed closer as if reluctant to allow passage. Darker, more intricate runes threaded across the stone. Sigils I did not recognize, their meanings locked in silence. The further we walked, the less the academy resembled a school, and the more it became a labyrinth, one built for secrets rather than learning. At first we found nothing, just shadow upon shadow, the hum of older whispers and our own footsteps echoing far too long in the dimness. Doubt began to crawl at the edges of my mind. Perhaps Erebus had been right. Perhaps it had been nothing. And for a moment, I thought of turning back. Nyx's whisper cut through the stillness, abrupt but thin with unease. "This is foolish, Noctis," she muttered, disdain layered over her fear. Yet she stayed beside me, as she always did, even when her instincts told her to flee. And then the light returned. Behind me, faint at first, then a pulse brighter. My chest tightened. I spun toward it. There it is. The light trembled, playful, then slipped away just as my eyes locked upon it. We moved forward, compelled to its direction. Every time I quickened my pace, the light darted ahead, flickering around the corners. When I slowed, it slowed. When I paused, it paused. Silent, patient, waiting. Always just beyond my reach. Was it merely toying with us? Nyx followed reluctantly, her irritation thinly veiling the truth that the light had caught her as well, its strange rhythm pulling her gaze despite her scorn. I could hear her sighs, low and exacerbated, though her steps never slowed. The deeper we chased it, the stranger the halls became. Time stretched and bent like heated glass. Our steps ringing out too long, the sound of our passage lingering unnaturally in the air. Torches fluttered, their flames dimming as if shrinking from what they sensed. The corridor twisted endlessly, each turn promising revelation, yet each corner yielding only another glimpse, another flash. I began to wonder if Nyx had been right. Were we simply in a trance, following this unknown light to some unknown place? But then, As suddenly as the thought had come, the light stopped. At the corridor's end it shimmered brightly, intense as the last frame of a dream, then seeped forward like liquid radiance, vanishing into the keyhole of a door bound in iron and chains. And there we stood, before a door that had not been meant for us to find, a door unlike any other I had ever seen within the academy, or anywhere in the Vale. Its presence consumed the corridor, rising high, framed in black stone, bound in cruel iron. Chains crisscrossed its surface like veins, each link groaning faintly as though alive. Etched into the stone were shifting glyphs, symbols that rearranged themselves, never holding still. It was not a door meant for students, perhaps not meant for anyone. And yet, that was where the light had led us. It vanished into the keyhole, leaving only a faint glow leaking from the other side. My pulse quickened, every part of me drawn forward. Then the light began to spill outward. It streamed through the keyhole, hesitant at first, then curling into the air. Its bluish gold mist held a presence that felt almost aware. It shimmered as though it recognized me, playful, beckoning. From the midst stretched a thicker strand, coalescing into the shape of a finger, reaching toward me. I found myself whispering, not to Nyx, not even to the air, but to the mystery itself. If I touch it, I'll understand. I moved closer. Nyx's voice broke the trance, sharp but low, her mask of calm finally cracking. She stepped forward, tension in her breath. Don't. You don't know what that would do to you. Her words felt more like a plea, but my hand was already lifting, drawn toward the luminous thread. And just as I reached for it, the light slipped back into the keyhole, vanishing like it had been playing with me this whole time. I bent to peer in the narrow opening, the glow shine from the other side, spilling out just enough to illuminate my face, painting me in its strange radiance. Time stood still as I placed my eye toward the keyhole. That was when the siren wailed. It cut through the stillness like a blade, the sound dragging both of us back to reality. And with a shock we realized we had thought only minutes had passed, but hours had slipped away. Time itself had betrayed us. I stumbled back from the door, bewildered, my heart pounding. Nyx grabbed my arm, pulling me away, her voice mixed with urgency. We have to go, now. But I lingered, staring at that chained threshold. A silent promise burned in me that I would return. Something had found us here, reaching out with its strange little finger of light. And though we had left it behind, I could feel the truth deep within my chest, that we had found something too. Thank you, sweet soul, for listening to this tale. We shall return again. Until next time, I hope you sleep